He used to think everything was better when shared. The laughter, the meals, the nights. But now, he's discovered a different kind of joy. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that lives in silence, in stillness, in ownership of self. Some things aren't secrets. They're just sacred. Here are 12 things mature men do alone, and quietly hope no one ever asks them to share again. If you've ever kept a small ritual to yourself, quietly protective of it, leave a comment. I finally belong to myself. 1. He drinks coffee in total silence. The world wakes up fast. Emails, notifications, the hum of obligation, but not him. He wakes with the kettle slow, steady, no rush. He grinds the beans by hand, not because it's trendy, but because it makes him feel something. The sound of the grinder, the weight of the mug, the steam was curling up through the quiet kitchen. It's a ritual he keeps just for himself. No one is asking about plans. No one is filling the air with chatter. He doesn't want to check headlines. He doesn't want to talk politics. He doesn't want to be efficient. He just wants to sit to feel the warmth in his hands and the calm in his chest. It's the only time of day when nothing is expected of him. No one needs answers. No one needs fixing. No one needs him to lead. He used to think mornings were for productivity. Now he knows they're for presence. And in that first sip, that deep breath, that long stare through the window, he finds himself again. He doesn't need the world just yet. Right now, he just needs the quiet and the coffee. 2. He listens to music without explaining his taste. His playlist isn't for parties anymore. It's not curated for someone else's vibe. It doesn't match the mood of a crowd. It doesn't try to impress anyone. It's messy, personal, and completely his. There's jazz from the 60s that makes him cry. Obscure soul tracks that remind him of high school. One classical piece he plays only when it rains. He used to share his music, used to pause the song to explain the lyrics, used to ask, "Do you like this one?" Now, he hits play and disappears into it. Because some songs don't need validation. They just need space. He doesn't need a conversation about chords. He doesn't want to defend why sad songs soothe him. He listens for the way the bass makes his spine loosen, for the way a single piano note can unlock a memory he didn't know was waiting. Music, for him, isn't entertainment. It's therapy. It's memory. It's him without words. So no, he doesn't want to share the playlist. Not because it's a secret, but because it's sacred. 3. He goes for walks without a destination. He puts on his shoes without checking the weather. He doesn't plan the route, doesn't tell anyone where he's going. Sometimes he walks the neighborhood he raised his children in. He notices the same trees, older now. A swing still hanging in someone's yard untouched, but not forgotten. Other days he wanders into a nearby park, listens to the leaves talking to the wind, nods at the same elderly man on the same bench. But mostly, he walks to disappear for a bit. Not from people, but from pressure. There's no watch telling him how far he's gone. No app logging his steps. Because walking, for him, is not about progress. It's about permission to not perform. He walks to remember that movement doesn't need purpose. That it's okay to exist without producing. Every footstep is a conversation with the earth. I'm still here. I'm still mine. I still get to choose. He doesn't walk to burn calories. He walks to burn off expectations. And when he returns, something in him has realigned quietly, without applause. 4. He cooks simple meals slowly. He doesn't cook to impress anyone anymore. No elaborate plating, no fancy wine pairings, no need to prove his culinary skills. Now, he cooks because it centers him. He washes vegetables like they matter. Slices, onions, slowly, not rushed, not perfect. Lets the soup simmer until the aroma fills every quiet corner of his kitchen. There's no one hovering. No one asking, "What time will dinner be ready?" No opinions about seasoning. No eyes watching how much butter he uses. It's just him, and the food, and the moment. For years, meals were obligations, dinners with half-listening teenagers, quick breakfasts between work calls, late-night takeout shared with silence, not connection. Now, he makes one plate, one bowl, one spoon, and he sits. He doesn't scroll. He doesn't rush. He closes his eyes after the first bite, not because it's gourmet, but because it's his. Cooking slowly is his way of reclaiming time, of honoring stillness, of offering something back to his body after decades of stress and sacrifice. It's not about what he eats. It's about the quiet ceremony of caring for himself, without applause, without anyone watching. 5. He reads without being interrupted. Books used to be a luxury, something he fit into the cracks of the day. Now, they're a boundary. When he opens a book, it's not for information. It's for immersion. He doesn't skim. He underlines. He reads sentences twice, sometimes 3 times, not because he didn't understand, but because it made him feel something deep. And he doesn't want anyone asking what the book is about, because it's not about plot. It's about the mirror it holds up, about the way a certain phrase pulls open a memory he'd buried beneath productivity. Reading now is different. It's a return to the boy who used to hide novels under his blanket, to the man who found solace in stories when life felt heavy. He doesn't want analysis. He doesn't want to join a book club. He wants to sit in silence with the company of words that don't demand anything from him. In a world of noise, reading is where he remembers his own voice. Not the one he uses at work. Not the one he uses in relationships, but the one he only hears when the room is still. 6. He talks to himself out loud. He doesn't think it's strange anymore. There was a time he worried, what if someone hears me? What will they think? Now, he talks to himself because it works. Because the world asks so much of him yet listens so little. So he listens to himself. Sometimes it's in the car, going over the conversation he should have had, or avoided. Sometimes it's in the kitchen, weighing a decision, asking out loud, do you really want this? Sometimes it's during a walk, muttering a line of poetry, a half joke, or just whispering, you're okay, you made it. This isn't madness, it's presence. He talks because he trusts that his thoughts are worth hearing, not to convince anyone, but to stay connected to himself. In a younger life, he sought answers from others. Now, he seeks alignment from the most honest voice in the room, his own. And if someone ever walks by and hears him, let them wonder, because what they don't know is that he's not unraveling, he's rebuilding, word by word, out loud, and unapologetically alone. 7. He sits in the car even after it's parked. The car is off. The garage light flickers on. But he doesn't move. Not because he's tired, because he's still arriving. This is one of the last places on earth where he's undisturbed. Before the door opens to bills on the counter, blinking lights on the answering machine, or just the weight of the world waiting to resume, he leans back, sometimes with music playing low, a saxophone solo that never quite resolves, sometimes with nothing but his own breath fogging up the windshield. He grips the steering wheel not to drive but to feel something solid. Sometimes he whispers things to himself he doesn't say in the house. You're doing fine. Just 5 more minutes. He remembers when he'd rush inside, straight into another role, father, husband, host, provider. But now, he sits, because the space between out there and in here is sacred. This isn't procrastination. It's protection, a ritual, a pause, a final exhale before re-entering a life that doesn't always leave room for his own silence. 8. He keeps a chair no one else uses. It's not fancy, not ergonomic, not even in the best shape, but it's his. The fabric remembers the curve of his spine. The armrest has absorbed years of fingers drumming through indecision. The cushion sags in the exact place he leans when he wants to think, not be interrupted. This isn't just a chair, it's a companion. It's a listening post. It's a mirror. He's read books here, paid bills here, fallen asleep during storms here, not because he planned to, but because he felt safe. He doesn't move the chair when guests come over, doesn't offer it, doesn't explain it, because some objects hold presence, not decoration. They've collected versions of him that no one else has met. He doesn't need new furniture. He needs familiar space, a seat where he can let his shoulders drop without thinking about posture or pretense. That chair holds his solitude, and he's not sharing it not because he's stubborn, but because it's the only place that knows him by weight, not words. 9. He has a drawer no one touches. It's not locked. It doesn't need to be, because the right people know. That drawer isn't off limits because it's private. It's off limits because it's sacred. Inside, an old wristwatch that stopped ticking the day his father passed. A photo from 1987, him and his brother, holding fish they never caught again. A note from a woman he almost married, folded so many times the crease became a scar. No one knows where the drawer is. Not because he's hiding it, but because no one's ever asked. Sometimes he opens it not to revisit the past, but to remind himself that he lived it. Every item in that drawer has a voice. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. Remember who you were. You're still him. He doesn't catalogue the contents, doesn't dust it regularly. He just visits it quietly, like checking on an old friend. It's not nostalgia, it's reverence. Because some things don't belong on display. They belong in drawers where they're held, not shown. And some men keep their deepest truths where no one can misunderstand them. 10. He watches old movies without commentary. He doesn't watch films for noise anymore. He watches them for silence. There's something sacred about those old black and white classics. The deliberate pauses, the long stares, the way characters used to feel before they spoke, if they spoke at all. He knows others find them boring, too slow, too quiet. When's something going to happen? They ask. But he knows everything is already happening. In the silence, in the hesitation, in the glance that lingers a second too long. He doesn't want questions mid-scene. Doesn't want anyone asking, "What's this movie even about?" Because it's not about anything. It's about everything. It's about the ache between sentences, the breath between lines, the stillness between people who don't need to fill the room with words to be understood. Sometimes he replays a single scene just to feel it again. Not because he missed the plot, but because he missed himself. Those movies take him back to a slower time, when love wasn't so performative, when endings weren't always tied up neatly. He doesn't want company. He wants presence. And the best movies let you sit with yourself without asking you to explain anything. 11. He writes things he never publishes. There are notebooks with coffee stains, Word documents saved as untitled, sticky notes stacked inside an old cigar box, none of it meant for the world. He writes for release, not recognition. Sometimes it's a line of poetry that came to him while driving. Other times, it's a letter to someone he never plans to send. Thoughts he'd never dare say aloud, but which, once written, stop haunting him. Writing is his pressure valve. It's where he lets out the ache without needing an audience. He's tried sharing before. Someone offered feedback. Someone didn't get it. Someone laughed. Now, he protects it. This isn't content. This is clearing space inside his soul. He doesn't worry about grammar, doesn't chase structure. He just lets it spill. The grief, the hope, the memory of something beautiful that passed too quickly. And when he finishes, he doesn't post. He doesn't edit. He just closes the page, takes a breath, and feels lighter. Because not every truth needs to be published to be powerful. 12. He falls asleep without talking to anyone. It used to feel strange. The silence, the absence of a voice saying goodnight, the emptiness beside him in the bed. But now, it feels whole. No late-night small talk, no checking in, no negotiating sleep schedules. Just the hum of the ceiling fan, the softness of the sheets, the way the darkness holds him gently, without question. He doesn't need someone beside him to feel safe, because now he is his own safety. Falling asleep alone no longer feels like lack. It feels like permission, to rest without performing, to exhale without being asked what's wrong, to dream without expectation. He has rituals now. Maybe it's tea. Maybe it's brushing the dog one last time. Maybe it's staring at the moon and saying thank you for nothing specific. Just thank you. And when he lies down, it's not escape. It's return. To quiet. To stillness. To a version of himself that no longer needs the world to keep him company in order to feel complete. He closes his eyes, and the world softens. These aren't quirks. They're keystones. He's not selfish. He's self-contained. After a lifetime of performing, proving, and pouring into others, he's reclaimed his solitude as something sacred. He's not asking for anyone to understand it. He's simply not willing to give it up again. Because when a man finally belongs to himself, he stops seeking applause and starts feeling peace. What's one quiet ritual you do alone and never want to give up? Leave it in the comments. Quietly, proudly, just like he would.